You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It is Tuesday. I almost said Monday, but we've already gone through Monday, right?
It kind of feels like a Monday.
Let's not do Monday again.
It's cold outside, so...
It is colder today. It was so nice yesterday, though.
In the 30s, and it's cold now.
It was beautiful yesterday. Got outside for 2 minutes and enjoyed it.
2 minutes?
Trying to catch up on all the work that I missed while I was out being unhealthy.
Yeah,
so,
I was really only outside going to and from my car, so I guess I shouldn't yell at you.
We have some good stuff lined up for today.
We do.
Speaking of being unhealthy, we're going to talk about being healthy. In the second half, we'll continue our wellness series with Deaconess Heidi Gaiman. Today, we take a look at church work students. Mm-hmm. Yes, going back to the days of being a student. Yes, it's a very special group of students. And speaking of students, also some really insightful tips from our friends at Lace Specialized Education. We'll talk about that here in just a moment as well. Thanks to our friends at Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about them at cuw.edu. In studio with us this morning, Jackie Smith, Executive Director of Lace Specialized Education. Jackie, a joy to have you here on the Coffee Hour.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you in studio. Tell us, for those not familiar with Lace Specialized Education, give us that elevator speech. What is Lace Specialized
Education? Elevator speech. Well, we at Lace Specialized Education provide educational support services for children with learning differences. Currently, we are in 16 Lutheran schools in the metropolitan area. All at different capacities. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that all of the children that we serve can really reach their God-given potential.
What are some typical evaluations for students that have some special needs?
It is typically most of our kids that we serve do have an individualized education program that from a diagnosis that maybe they got from special school district. What we are seeing actually now is more of those kids who really would not qualify for special education services. That doesn't mean necessarily they don't suffer from dyslexia or they might have a language disorder, but they just don't qualify for special school district. So at Lace, we actually do provide those kind of individualized education plans for those children.
Thinking of families who are really committed to Lutheran education, they want their child to be in a Lutheran school, but they know their child has a learning disability or some sort of special need. Where does Lace help make that happen? How does Lace help make that happen so that they can still be committed to their Lutheran education as well?
Typically that happens in the admissions process at our schools. Mm-hmm. And once a parent has communicated that my child needs some supports in these areas, mm-hmm. the either the admissions director or the principal will actually pull the Lace Specialized Education teacher to have a conversation with the parents to see if what kind of supports that we can develop so that child is successful at that school.
So this means that parents don't have to give up this option of a Lutheran school for their child if they have maybe a learning disability or some sort of special need. It doesn't necessarily eliminate a Lutheran school, because sometimes we think a Lutheran school, maybe it's smaller, it might not have all the resources that maybe the larger school districts have, that sort of thing. So Lace helps bridge that gap and make that happen. And I've seen this in our own school, in my son's school too. We have a Lace teacher, and we are so grateful to have that support. And right now we don't need those, but to know that if that comes up in the future for my son, that we have that support of a Lace teacher right there on campus, so that if he needs, and granted, you can't meet every need with one teacher.
Correct. That is
not saying that this teacher is a miracle worker. You can't meet every need, but to know that's an option, that we can still utilize our Lutheran school, which it's much smaller than the giant public school district that we have. But
yes,
to know that great resource is there. So recently, Lace Specialized Education sent out their newsletter, and you had top 10 reasons not to avoid evaluation and treatment for your child. And that's what sparked this. I was like, oh, never really thought of it. Having been being an educator, I always think of these things like, yeah, okay, we should probably check this out and make sure that's okay. But for many parents, it might be something that we're reluctant to think about and to pursue. Why do you think we're reluctant to even consider that our child might have a disability and to avoid assessment or evaluation and then treatment or services?
Well, it's scary. I mean, let's just be honest. It's very scary for anybody. As parents, we see our children go through challenges, and when you predict that maybe my child's not hitting those milestones, you really want to. I see it all the time. I think parents really want they want their child to do well in school academically. We want our children to have friends, and sometimes it's very difficult. I think what you have to do is really gather information. I actually have a child that has an anxiety disorder, and I'm very public about that. And I knew that there was some issues when she was younger, and I just started gathering information. I went to my pediatrician. I had a conversation with him. I started talking to educators. I was trying to really put the tools in place at home and at school so she could be successful. And that's where I go when I talk to parents, is that you want your child to be successful, have friends, and really experiencing those successes is going to have an impact not only academically, but his self-esteem, her self-esteem. So that's why we really want to encourage trying to get under the hood and really find out what those issues are. And they might not be as bad as you think they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about anxiety. And maybe this is just my coming of age into adulthood and just realizing that a lot of people have, special, maybe it's not a learning disability, but it is anxiety, or it is something that we're talking about this so much more, even with adults. As more of these things are becoming more prevalent and just we're okay talking about them more, which I think is really, really important. Because half the battle is just being able to be open about it.
Thank you, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Half the battle is knowing, right?
Am I too young for that?
Yes, you are.
Oh, man.
I'm not.
Sorry, that went way over my head.
You know where I was going.
I knew where you were going.
What happens when we do overlook these or when we don't treat the needs that are arising in children? Children
get farther and farther behind. They actually don't have the friends that we would like them to have. They become more quiet, possibly. There are a lot of different ways that our kids develop tools to survive in those kind of settings. So that's why we want to gather as much information as we can. Have the conversation with your educators. Have the conversation with your pediatrician. And just gather as much information as you can so you can develop those resources for your child.
So making sure that if there is a disability or a special need, that that you're getting the resources you need, the support that you need, because what I'm hearing you say is left untreated, not only can it create challenges in terms of learning, but can also lead to some isolation, some sense of isolation for your child as well, maybe feeling cut off from or extremely different from other kids around them.
Exactly. And that becomes actually more prevalent as a child grows up and becomes an adolescent. So that's why early intervention is what is actually the key to success, is finding out what those challenges are early. And developing those interventions for children, this is what we do at Lay Specialized Education, is really develop those interventions that's individualized to that child's needs. That's what makes special education so unique, is you're not looking at holistic, you're looking at each individual child and what tools do we need to develop to help that child be successful. Is reading a paragraph out loud going to help him or her on that test versus them reading it because they have difficulty with comprehension? Okay, we can do that because the information is there. We just have to get it out of him or her. And then they feel successful. They're like, I know this information. And that's wonderful to see.
So that's why I have to read my textbooks out loud.
Yep.
I get it now.
Yep.
Where can we look for resources? I'm not kidding.
I know.
Where can when you hear me reading from my cubicle, where can we look for resources such as information like this, or where do we look for evaluation too? If we have a young child or even a child in elementary or middle school, we suspect there might be a disability there. What's the first step? What do you recommend that parents do if they suspect that their child might have a disability?
First step is talk to your pediatrician first. Mm-hmm. Then I would actually talk to the child's teacher or special educator to talk about the milestones or what your concerns are. Have a dialogue with the educator because they're with your child majority of the day. So have that conversation. There is a possibility that collaboratively you can come together and actually go to special school district and have that child evaluated. You have to fill out some paperwork and some information in order to get tested. You can also go through a private evaluator to get information about your child's potential disability. There are all sorts of resources out there that you can look at. Actually, what spearheaded all of this was that social media post on our Facebook page that Amy Moss, we consider her one of our collaborative partners. Mm-hmm. She's at West County Psychological Associates, and she's come in to actually do professional development for a lot of our staff. And she also has some recommendations. So we listen to her. She's a great resource in the St. Louis community. Also go on to LutheranSpecialEd.org, which is our website, to look at other resources.
You mentioned earlier, we only have a few seconds left. You mentioned earlier that LACE Specialized Education is in 16 Lutheran schools in the St. Louis area.
16 Lutheran schools currently, yes.
So, if you're thinking that that Lutheran education might not be an option for your child because they have special needs, check out the schools, the Lutheran schools in the area. There might be resources there so that Lutheran education can still be a part of your family's choices for your child's education. Jackie Smith, Executive Director, LACE Specialized Education. Thank you so much for being with us this morning in the studio, and God's blessings on your work.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up in just a little bit, we continue our wellness series with Deaconess Heidi Gaiman right here on the Coffee Hour, taking a look at church work students. Sorry if I start regressing and sharing stories
oversharing, Andy.
from my formative years as a church work student. You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.